Livia, everybody also know about Livia, and Livia is currently a leading nutritional research with the is at the Italian Institute of Cancer, right? And Livia has done a lot of work, most close to our heart. Actually, is the international quality international consortium of carbohydrate quality with many no experts in the fields over the past few years, and which have put out some of those consensus coming and reports. And without further ado, I turn this to Lydia. Another focus on carbohydrate.
Thank you, Simin, and for the introduction, and thank you all, and especially the organizer for bringing us here, and the sponsors as well. It's a beautiful place, besides an interesting meeting, and it reminds me a lot of Canada, and I've been away from Canada for a few years now. I live in Italy. As Simin said, I work at the National Cancer Institute in Naples, so next door to Gabriele, practically. And I am Italian, but this is not the reason why I show you pasta, and I'll talk to you about pasta. The reason is because of Marianne von Ginkel, who's a professor at the University of Brighton in England, and she's here with us. There she is. and Peter Ellis, Professor Peter Ellis, who couldn't make it at this meeting this time. He's professor at the University, King's College University in London, England. It's their fault, basically. Because they started to try to explain to us carbohydrate at the ICQC meetings, International Carbohydrate Quality Consortium meetings. They were organized every 2 years, as Gabriele explained. And they tried to explain to us that dietary fiber maybe is lacking some of the peculiarities that they saw with the electron microscope, and also not just the dietary fiber definition could be improved, but also the starch, the definition of carbohydrates as a whole. As also Joanne said, we're always looking for better definition, for best definition, and so we thought to look more into pasta, because pasta is practically is part of the Mediterranean diet for a few centuries already. And as you can see, the food pyramid, the Mediterranean food pyramid on the left. And we know that the Mediterranean diet is a healthy diet, particularly the traditional Mediterranean diet. And we know also that pasta is a low glycemic index food. David Jenkins, who was my PhD mentor in Canada, he did many studies back in the 80s on glycemic index. As you all know, is the father of the glycemic index, and he found that spaghetti, the blood glucose curve of spaghetti after eating spaghetti rises, as you can see from the blue line. It rises, of course, after eating about more or less half compared to white bread or wholemeal bread. And so we can say, especially if it is al dente, so cooked a little bit undercooked, like we do in Italy, it's even lower glycemic index. And we all know that low glycemic index foods are associated with lower risk of chronic diseases, and low glycemic index foods are very useful in controlling the glycemia or hyperglycemia in people with diabetes. The Mediterranean, the MedGI study by Gabriele showed it clearly that with 24-hour glucose monitoring that you can reduce the increases in glycemia throughout the 24 hours. And of course, reducing this glycemia throughout the 24 hours is associated with less mortality and cardiovascular disease. So there are lots of benefits of eating a low glycemic index diet. When looking at pasta, particularly in studies, in observational studies, we can see that it's associated, the consumption of pasta is associated with less risk of diabetes. And this is another study from Gabriele's group. It's also associated with a lower risk of cardiovascular disease. This is a study of Leo, Simin, and Meng Huang. Right? You're nodding. Good. So this was a substitution study, though, right? This was basically substituting pasta for potatoes and white bread. And there was a significant reduction in stroke. In cancer, we saw reductions with collaborations with Carlo Lavecchia in Milan and Silvia Franceschi in Aviano. We did this series of case control studies, and we looked in some of them, we looked at pasta consumption compared to bread consumption. We found that with bread consumption, there was an increased risk of breast and colorectal cancer, but not with pasta consumption. And in Italy, we eat a lot of pasta and a lot of bread. So it wasn't a case that there was low frequency of consumption for pasta. And we know there is a very interesting, very good review by Sanders and Slavin. Joanne explained already a lot, but this is focusing on pasta, and it's a very high quality review. Basically, she found that both in observational studies of pasta and in RCTs, you don't see an increase in body weight. There is no association with increased body weight, and there is no association, either there is no association or there is no association with increased body weight. In some cases, there is actually a negative association. So more pasta is consumed, the lower the body weight, and particularly for the RCTs. This whole, I don't expect you to read this, but this is a table of observational studies that I just summarized briefly about pasta and cardiovascular risk factors or chronic diseases that Natalia Russo, actually, who is here, one of our students from Federico II University in Naples, put together. And we're going to, she also did the RCTs of pasta and cardiometabolic risk factors. We're going to finish this review and publish it. Marianne is nodding with Peter and Gabriele, and of course the ladies involved, the students involved. Also Eva, your student, Marianne, also involved. And basically here, just briefly, what the dots show is a beneficial effect on the risk factor that is in the column, or that there was no effect, but not a negative effect. So mainly there was a positive effect for blood pressure, for postprandial glycemia, postprandial insulinemia, which is showing here, and blood lipids. But this is probably all information that you all know. What we probably didn't relate well with is that pasta is actually classified among unhealthy plant-based foods because it's considered a refined carbohydrate. And how many here think that pasta, normal white pasta, is a refined carbohydrate? If you want to lift your hands, it's okay. I'm not going to take a picture. Okay, some people think so. And that's why we also classify them as scientists in, well, some people classify them as refined carbohydrate and therefore unhealthy plant-based food. How many think it's not a refined carbohydrate here? How many think that? Oh, okay, we've got one. Good. Yes, exactly. So actually, the USDA considers pasta as a good source of fiber. Okay. And in fact, when a study looking at pasta consumption, spaghetti consumption in the US, more than 10,000 American adults, representative of the American population, they found that there is, with pasta consumption, spaghetti consumption, there is an increased intake of dietary fiber and an increased quality of the diet by the Hay score. In Italy, pasta is the pasta making is strictly regulated by law, and I couldn't believe that because I actually didn't know that the president of the republic is involved in this. Okay, but it is, and so this is the decree. There is a law, yeah, and it says that semolina flour, and actually durum wheat semolina flour, has to be used, or else for making pasta, and it has to have a certain humidity, which is defined here, 12.5%, and it's forbidden to use anything else, okay, to make pasta. But if you do include some soft wheat, then it can also, if you include some soft wheat, it cannot be more than 3%. Be careful. So this is how tightly regulated it is, the pasta making in Italy, and I think that in other countries, in France too, I understand that it's tightly regulated by law as well, and that's because a lot of people eat pasta, and it is a business, right? But what we see with semolina flour is not like refined flour, like totally refined 00 type of flour, but it's this. It looks like this in an electron microscope with the electron microscopy studies that Peter Ellis did back in England and back some years ago. So this is amazing, I think, because you can see here the cell walls. There you go. These are these lines. Do you see these darker lines where the red arrows are? These are the cell walls, they teach me. And this cell walls is dietary fiber. And this is a semolina flour, okay, durum wheat semolina, which means that inside these cell walls, there can be content. There can be starch, macronutrients, micronutrients, phytocomponents, which then can go through the whole gastrointestinal tract and end up in the colon. And there, of course, the fiber, the cell wall is the fiber, can be digested by the microbiota, and potentially it can give beneficial effects. Certainly the beneficial effects of fiber that we already heard from Gabriele, but perhaps also the content of these unruptured cells, okay, present in semolina, can also become food for the microbiota. So pasta made of durum wheat semolina can be represent little packages of food, little meals for this microbiota in the gut. So they have the benefit of the fiber and the content that is inside these unruptured cell walls. Instead, with the refined flour on the right side does not have these unruptured cell walls, and therefore the content is available for the amylase enzyme to be immediately digested. These are also reasons why the pasta is a lower glycemic index than a refined bread. And what you can see also in these beautiful pictures from Peter again, it shows green in my computer, but okay, sorry, not here. In any case, here you can see again these lines, which are the intact cell walls, and these dark lines, okay, these are like streets, okay, roads, okay, but you can see also the white granules. With the light, maybe you don't see it as well, but these are the white granules, this is the starch, and the starch is trapped in these unruptured cells. Of course, this is the slice, so you see it open, but in reality, if you don't slice it, it's closed in. It's an unruptured cell wall containing the starch. And the starch is really well packed in pasta because of the pasta making process of heating and cooling, okay, and drying. But it's also very well packed and intact in these cell walls. And therefore, it's very unavailable for water, so for gelatinization and for amylase enzymes to reach, particularly the center of pasta. And okay, so this picture again shows the type structure of pasta with gluten, where you can see no holes. Basically, when you look at uncooked durum wheat spaghetti, this tight structure, which makes it difficult for amylase enzymes to enter, but also you have dietary fiber on the outside, so it's actually impossible to digest that for the amylase enzymes. They don't digest fiber, at least the human amylase. Here, I mean, you see instead uncooked standard wheat bread dough, which is leavened, so it's very open structure. It has a lot of holes, and so this is very easily gelatinized and also digested by the enzymes. So in the take-home messages here are that let's remember that the USDA defines pasta as a good source of fiber. Pasta is made of durum wheat semolina, which has intact cell walls, which is dietary fiber. And white pasta, although having lost this browny layer of the grain, does not have the negative effects associated with highly refined carbohydrates. And by chemical and structural analysis, pasta is not a refined carbohydrate. And pasta within a healthy diet is associated with lower risk of chronic diseases, as the observational and the clinical data shows. It shows reduced cardiometabolic risk factors. It does not increase body weight, as Joanne has shown in her review. And let's also remember that it's a vehicle for healthy food ingredients of the Mediterranean diet. If you're lucky to be able to either live in a Mediterranean country or be able to buy Mediterranean foods, such as olive oils, tomatoes, vegetables, nuts, and seeds. But of course, other foods, if you are in another country that doesn't have these type of foods available, there are equivalent healthy foods. Now, all this, I realized I didn't show a lot of the things that I discussed because it was supposed to be a short presentation. But nevertheless, we are going to summarize all this in a viewpoint on pasta. Is it a refined carbohydrate, refined grain or not? Which has been already sent to the B&J Nutrition. And we're going to also finish the review, the complete review. So you'll find all the references there. And I just leave you with this nice painting from the 1800s, showing pasta eating in Rome, the German painter Julius Moser, and the Neapolitan painter Saverio della Gatta joyfully eating pasta in Naples, and pasta vendors in Naples, all from the 1800s. Yeah, used to be sold like this, not in packaging like we do now. It was freshly made. And with this, I thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Livia.